Parenting Junkie.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Parenting Junkie, the place to go to love parenting and for parenting from love. Whether you have a toddler or a teenager, focus and attention is something that is on the lips of many parents in today's day and age. Now, today I'm going to give you 20 proven ways to increase and support your child's long stretches of focus and greater attention span. This is very much in sync with all of the things that I bring in the Present Play membership. Just as a disclaimer, I want to say that I think for some children and some people, maybe medication is the right route to go. I don't know, and I'm not qualified to comment on that. But I do want to provide you with the natural, design-based ways of helping people focus that I believe should be really utilized way before any kind of medical intervention. Now, you might be wanting to take notes on this. You don't have to. I've created a cheat sheet with all 20 of these points, so you can click the link below to download that and go through them and start implementing them in your life. I also want to say that I truly believe that a big variation in temperament when it comes to attention and attention span is 100% normal, and it's part of the diversity of human experience, and I celebrate it. Often it's the systems we put people in that are problematic, definitely not the people themselves. Having said all of that, being able to focus for longer can really serve us and our children. Number one, define the lack of focus correctly. Often we say a child can't focus and they have a short attention span, but we have to be a little bit realistic and also honest about what that means to us. Do we as adults have short attention spans? Yeah, many of us can't go a few seconds without checking our phone, without interrupting, without trying something else. We're multitasking all of the time. The world is full of many distractions, and so being distracted and being pulled in lots of different directions is often not a problem at all, or at least not one that's inherent to the person, the child, or to their cognition and their neurology, but rather a product of the environment. We also have to realize that lack of focus is something that we are judging as our adult selves based on some kind of measure that some people put together, right? Some people put together how long a 2-year-old should be able to play. These things are often arbitrary. They're often put together by people who don't know that specific 2-year-old. So they're not contextual. They're not humanized. They're dehumanized. We need to rehumanize our definition of lack of focus and instead realize that there's just a spectrum. Now, one way to put this into perspective is to ask yourself, well, can my child focus when they're interested? If so, they do not have a lack of focus problem, my friend. They might have a problem with the material or the situation that they're trying to be coerced to be interested in and focused on, but so do I, and so do most people I know. That leads me directly to number 2, which is to set reasonable expectations. Understand child development. Understand your child's development and your child's temperament. Don't expect them to be focused in the way that their neighbors are or that your other children are. Don't expect them to be focused in ways that most children of that age group are not. Often, it's our fantasies and our wishes, our convenience that's driving our expectations rather than an attunement to the reality that's before us. If you have a 2-year-old who won't sit down to play for more than 2 minutes, it's your fantasy and your wish and your need for a bit more time at your computer or to cook that's driving your expectation from them, rather than an attunement into that child and their unique, specific experience right now. Number 3 is follow the child. Follow the child's learning style. Follow their interests. I promise you that if your child is learning or doing something that they're fascinated by, passionate about, and in a modality of learning that they enjoy, they will be focused for quite some time. So instead of trying to fit the child into the box, bring the box that fits the child. Does your child learn best when they're moving? Most children do. Do they learn best when there's interaction, when they're exploring, when they're asking questions rather than being lectured at? Do they learn best through art or perhaps through music? Think about the modalities and the learning styles that support your child and try to cater their environment, make decisions that actually honor those. Further, is your child obsessed with dinosaurs or ballet or space? If so, see how those elements are elements that can introduce a whole variety of learning opportunities. Follow those interests. Each and every interest that your child might hold has within it a world, a universe of learning opportunities. So rather than trying to teach them history or get them to focus on an activity that they're not interested in, guide them, allow them to follow the interests that are intrinsically motivating to them, and they will be focused and they will be driven and they will seek and find the learning experiences that they need. Trust them. Number 4 is unstructured time outside. It has been proven again and again and again how healing time in nature is. And when I say healing, I actually mean healing. It helps us clean up the mind, clean up the body, challenge the body in the ways that we need in order to then be able to focus. Nature in itself is always in balance. It has a palette, a color palette that is soothing to our eyes. It has enough stimulation without overstimulation, right? We have the crunchiness of the leaves or the smoothness of the water on a rock. We have different textures, different sensory input, wind in our face, the sound of the birds, sand through our fingers. All of these different sensory experiences give us input that puts us at ease and allows us to process the things that we're learning. Nature and time in nature, in a sense, is like sleep. It's the time that we need in order to process all of the things that are coming in. Now, if you think that your child is being flooded by learning opportunities, by messages, by content coming in, you're probably right. Most children are right now in the weird countries. And so what we need to do is balance that out with the opposite, and time in nature is the perfect example of ways to do that. Now, if you can get into nature every day for long stretches of time, and I'm talking hours, 1 hour absolute minimum, but hopefully it's 2 or 3 hours. But even if you can't do that every day, do as much as you can. And this supports our children's physical, emotional, academic, and spiritual growth. Number 5 is to encourage plenty of movement. Our bodies need movement on a daily basis. And if a child isn't getting enough movement, they won't be able to focus on anything else. They need to have run and jumped and stretched and gone upside down, spinning in circles, swinging, getting impact from their environment and feeling their muscles really stretch and work hard. If your child isn't getting enough movement, you can forget that they'll be able to focus on anything for a while. They'll get very fidgety and they'll really feel cramped. Their body itself will be yelling to get out of there and get moving. And so onto that. And the idea here isn't to enroll them in yet another class, yet another soccer practice or baseball lesson or whatever it is, because that's again structured time that they need to focus on direction. The idea here is to liberate them and make sure that they get unstructured, self-directed time for movement. Now, if it's winter or you're not getting out enough, I highly recommend setting up a movement zone in your home. And I will give you plenty of tips on how to do this inside the Present Play membership. Often parents and teachers complain that their children are fidgeting, when in fact that's 100% appropriate. If they haven't had enough time to run around and fidget and move and stretch, their bodies are signaling that they need to do that. And so the most appropriate way to respond is to allow it. Number 6 is to address your child's nutrition. I am not a nutritionist and I'm not qualified to comment on this, but all of the books I've read about nutrition speak to really identifying some things that might be causing sensitivities in your child. Things like dairy, gluten, and certainly sugar are things that are going to affect our ability, our brain's functionality in a deep way. So cutting out certain things from your child's diet is a definite step way before medication to see if you can support their cognitive regulation better and to really cleanse them of irritants that are going into their body every single day. There are also many foods that really support brain functionality and that many of our children have a deep deficiency in, such as healthy fat, which is something that many children aren't getting enough of. Number 7, critically important, sleep. So many children are sleep deprived. So many children aren't getting the sufficient amount of hours that they really do need for sleep. And maybe the quality of that sleep isn't good enough. So if your child isn't getting enough sleep, don't even think about the focus issue before you've addressed deep, nourishing, nurturing sleep every single night and making that the mainstay of their days, making sure that they are getting a full night's sleep. And you might be surprised at how many hours your child actually needs in order to sleep. My personal best way of giving my children enough sleep is an early bedtime. But you'll find the way that works for you. If you want even more on sleep, I will link to my videos about a good bedtime routine and getting the healthy sleep your children need and other resources on the blog post of this video. Number 8 is to simplify the schedule. I call it becoming a busy slayer. To have less things that you're doing, less transitions, less places to go, less complexity, right? To really simplify your lives, simplify your flow so that you're able to sink into deep flow and deep focus. When you always know that the next thing is coming and it's different every day and we don't know what's going on and we don't have time to arrive and to be and to really, soak up an experience before we're on to the next thing, then it becomes extremely difficult, impossible even, to sink into focus. Number 9 is establishing routines and predictability. And this goes hand in hand with simplifying the schedule. A simple schedule that is flexible but predictable, repeatable pretty much every week, with things that we can rely on and big anchors in our day and in our week, things that we know will happen every single day. Really established routines and predictability help to liberate us from the frenzy of the transition, from the adaptability that we need. When we have simplified schedules with routines and predictability, we can actually sink into the task at hand. Number 10 is minimalism. Minimize your environment, your child's environment. Make there be less stuff, less overstimulation. It is so hard to focus on anything when there's clutter around, when there's lots of colors and lots of things calling to us. It's distracting. Number 11 is to manage your screens consciously. I think that we all realize that there's an addictive quality to screens and it's extremely hard not to be distracted by them. My own personal approach so far has been to have dedicated times for screen use. And I have found that very liberating, and my children have too. They know when they get to use a screen and when we're switching it off. And we hold to that very firmly. Certainly having any screen running in the background or just available is going to be extremely distracting when it's time to focus. Number 12 is do not interrupt. Often we ourselves are causing a shortened attention span by commentating and interrupting what they're doing. We're commenting on how they're drawing the picture and how we like how they're playing and oh, did you put the dolly in there? And oh, I see that you're doing that worksheet now and you're working so hard and we're commenting all the time and it's interrupting their focus. Look, if you were sitting down to write a novel, I promise you wouldn't want your husband or wife to be standing over your shoulder and commenting on what you're doing. Respect it and be quiet. Tiptoe. Don't make eye contact. Don't get involved. Don't even watch them. It's annoying to be observed when you're in the flow of something that's meaningful to you. You just want to be in that bubble and focus. So hold on to and protect any moment of focus like that your child's already exhibiting. And it will build if you allow it to. Number 13 is to celebrate wins within yourself. When you notice that your child, they actually did just sit for a few minutes or a few minutes longer than usual. They were really focused on something that they're usually not focused on. Just acknowledge that to yourself, not even to your child, but to yourself, because often it's our own mindset, our own disbelief that our child can focus that leads them to be less focused. So acknowledge within yourself how your child changes and develops every day and allow for that openness. Leading on from this, number 14 is do not label. Don't label your child as having a focus issue, as having an attention issue. Don't speak that way to them and don't let them hear you say it or even think it, because it's just not true. They focus in the perfect way that they are meant to right now. They have the attention span that is 100% perfect for them and who they are. Celebrate that diversity. See its strengths. Number 15 is to be aware of the auditory input in your environment. If you have a podcast running in the background, too much music, or a baby screaming, realize that that's going to distract and disrupt your child's focus. And so if you can create an environment where there's some soothing sounds perhaps, and that actually muffle out some of the distracting sounds, maybe soothing music, or maybe an audiobook that keeps them in the flow of what they're doing, but they can listen to something. Meanwhile, you'll see that many children need that auditory pacing, if you will, to keep them in a space of flow. The same goes for smells. It's interesting, but we don't even think about how the smell in our environment can really impact our ability to focus. But there are some scents that can really improve focus. If you want to use aromatherapy and diffuse a scent that helps to soothe the senses and to calm oneself and to focus, rather than perhaps there might be smells from cooking or whatever it is that might be arousing or distracting, you'll see that that will have an effect as well. The next one is sensory input. Many children are sensory seeking and they need sensory exploration and experience in order to focus. Playing with sand or pebbles, or having some kind of sensory bag that they can play with, or sitting on something or having a weighted blanket on them while they're doing whatever they're trying to focus on. Notice that your child may need pressure or no pressure. They might need the feeling of hanging or of swaying. They might need just some stimulation for their fingers, such as something that they can fidget with or feel as they are doing something else. The next one is to bring your attention to the task. Think about it that where you put the spotlight of your own attention actually directs your child and makes it more interesting. It's kind of like if you go to a restaurant and there's a long queue outside of people waiting to get in, it makes you think that must be a really good restaurant. Well, if you yourself are very interested in something, like you're really interested in whatever it is that your child needs to focus on now, you will attract their focus as well. The next one is to direct them back to a task, to encourage persistence and grit and resilience by allowing them that detour of getting distracted, of doing something else, and then helping them to come back and to persist, to come back and to stay with whatever it is they were trying to do. And that leads me into the final point, which is to help them work through frustrations. Coach them through the frustrations as they come up. Often children get distracted because they've come across an obstacle that they perceive as too difficult. For example, if your child's trying to build a tower but it keeps falling down, maybe they need just a little bit of scaffolding, a little bit of help from you, just to move past that next step. The point is to stay and move past that obstacle in order to continuously create a feedback loop where once something was difficult, but I kept trying, I succeeded and kind of brought myself into the next level. When they get enough feedback loops like that, they develop an internal experience of I can overcome. I did it. I think this is how we build that intrinsic motivation. I hope you've enjoyed these 20 ways to help your child focus better, naturally and without medication. If you have and you think this would help other parents, give it a thumbs up so it can be more discoverable, and share it with the people who you think it would help. Plus, don't forget you have a cheat sheet for this video in a PDF download, and you can share that with your partner or teachers at your children's school in order to help support our children's focus. And leave me your comment below on ways that you think we can support longer attention spans naturally. If you're looking for a supportive community of like-minded parents, I warmly invite you to join our Love Parenting with Avital Facebook group. Plus, head on over to theparentingjunkie.com and sign up for email updates so I can gift you my free PDF guide, 10 easy steps to transform your home into a play-inducing haven. Keep on loving parenting and parenting from love, because your kids need you almost as much as you need them. Bye! The Parenting Junkie.